Anyhow, so إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, when the sun, even the sun, as a matter of fact, is folded up. إِذَا لِوُقُوعِ الشَّرْطِ, something that is bound to happen. In other words, instead of saying if, it's a when, meaning it's going to occur. The second thing is, the use of the past tense suggests that it's going to happen all of a sudden, and it's bound to happen. That's the other rhetorical benefit of using the past tense verb for future things. You know how in English you say, somebody asks you, hey, can you please make sure you bring my keys tomorrow? And you say, consider it done. How can you consider it done? It's not done yet. That's going to be done tomorrow. But when you are guaranteeing somebody something, even if you're talking about the future, you actually use the past tense verb, like done, finished, yeah. You know, so that's a way of emphasizing and guaranteeing there's no way around it, this is going to happen. And that's how Allah is speaking here. Now the word كُوِّرَتْ كَوَّرَ الْعَمَامَةِ إِذَا أَدْخَلَ بَعْضُهَا فِي بَعْضٍ وَلَفَّهَا أو أدخل بعضها في بعض ولفها وقريب من هذا الإطلاق إطلاق الطي في قوله يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب. كَوَّرَ الْعَمَامَةِ, the Arabs used to have turbans, right? So when they used to fold up their turban, and they used to wrap up parts of it because it's like a rectangle, right? So they have to fold it up first and then they wrap it up. That's actually called takwir. So that's the word Allah is using for the sun, which can be interpreted in two ways. Either when you look up on Judgment Day at the sun, it's going to look like it's getting folded up. Like, where did it go? Why is it having an eclipse like that? Because when something is folded up, you can't see what's going on inside it, or something is there, but it's kind of hidden away. But the other meaning of kubirat could also be that the light of the sun, because you know, just like in English, also in Arabic, when you say, wow, it's really, there's a lot of sun out today. Even if you don't see the sun, what do you see? Sunlight. And you refer to that as sun also. لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا. Quran will also say, they won't see a sun or any sun, nor any brightness. What that means is any sunlight. It's not referring to the sun, the star in the sky, because people don't stare at the sun before they say it's sunny. They just look at the light around them and say it's sunny, right? So it's referring to two things. One, perhaps when people look up, they're not going to be seeing the sun as they used to. It's looking like it's wrapped up. The other is that the light of the sun is now dwindling. It's because the planet is becoming dark all of a sudden. And its light it's like it's getting folded up, wrapped up. This is the shocker of that day. It starts with this kind of darkness. وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. And of course, as the sun is getting folded up, what does it feel like? Nighttime. And so the very next ayah starts talking about the stars. Because if the sun is folded up, which means we're in the dark, now you're looking at the star, hoping to see what? Stars. And so he says, إِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. The al-kudra, ضد الصفا. Kadara in Arabic is the opposite of being clean. It's being dirty or polluted. That's one of the meanings of it. كَتَغَيُّرِ لَوْنِ الْمَاءِ. Like when water goes bad and its color changes, the coloration of water, that's also called kadara or kudra in Arabic, with a kaf, not a qaf. Okay? So now the stars, which look pure white to us, right? They're like a clean light, the stars. But on that day, it's going to look like they're colored and they're dirtied. And so one of the meanings of inqadarat is the stars are going to start looking dirty. The other meaning, al-ma'na al-mihwari, انقلاع الغليظ الراسخ أو انقطاعه مفارقا مقره. It's actually when you take something that is always there and you pluck it out. The other meaning of kudra or inkadara is for something to get plucked out. It's also used, for example, وهي المدرة الكدرة هي المدرة التي تثير سنابك الخيل. When the horse runs on the beach, and its hoof plucks out sand and it kind of flies in the air with every strike of the hoof. That's actually kadara. In other words, you're going to feel like stars are getting just plucked out of the sky. Stars are just getting pulled out. So one, their color is changing, and two, they're starting to disappear right before your eyes. وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. And by the way, that happens in quick succession too. It's not like, hey, because when you see like a plane in the distance, it feels like it's really slow, right? Or when you see a shooting star, it seems like it's like, wow, they move pretty slow. They may be going millions of miles an hour in the distance, but for us it looks like, oh, pretty lame. They could have been faster, And just like when you're flying in a plane and you see cars driving on the highway as the plane's about to land, they look like they're really slow. Even if they're going 90 miles an hour. For you, from that distance, it looks slow. But the use of the word inkidar, it includes al-isra' wal-inqidad. In other words, something falling quickly. So even from this galactic distance, it's going to look like they're falling like like immediately. So there's an intensity designed in these ayat, like they're falling like raindrops. The sky is falling apart like raindrops. So تناثرت من ظاهر وجه السماء كأنما قلعت أو قذفت. They're going to fall off from the sky as if they're being plucked out, or they're being dropped and thrown away. And so now this is what's happening on the sky, and that kept you so preoccupied that you didn't realize what's happening on the earth. وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ. And when the mountains, even the mountains, are going to be made to sail away, and we've read this before, وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. Just on a side note, an observation about how the Day of Judgment is talked about in the Quran. Allah actually talks less about what happens in the sky or in the like for the sun. It's the only mention, other than one more, where the sun and the moon are going to collide with each other. وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. The moon and the sun and the moon will collide with one another. They'll become one, right? And maybe it is that explosion that explains how it starts getting folded up or whatever it may be. But Allah does not talk about much of the sky other than it's going to look like it's peeled. It's going to be turning blood red. You know, فَكَانَتْ وَرْدَةً كَالدِّهَانِ, for instance, right? And dihan is, when you peel the skin of a camel, and or any animal for that matter, and the blood red appears. That's actually the description of the sky. Like Allah describes the sky like a helpless, domesticated animal that is being slaughtered. Like to Allah, the entire sky is like that, and it's just being slaughtered. That's the imagery described of the sky. But one of the most common occurrences of the major cataclysmic events that'll take place on the earth, Allah keeps going back to mountains. So mountains are referred to, and what's going to happen with the mountains? يَنْسِفُهَا رَبِّي نَسْفًا, and فَجَعَلَهَا قَاعًا صَفْصَفًا, and then you'll see in shorter surahs later on, وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ. So what's going to happen with mountains? That they're going to be turned into grains of sand, that they're going to be pummeled into flatness, that they're going to be made to sail away, that they're going to be crushed until they are nothing, until they're completely flattened. There are multiple images of mountains experiencing this. And mountains are, in fact, the most prominent structure on the planet. Like mountains, by far, dwarf anything else that exists on this planet. And they are, in fact, a symbol of stability. A lot of the ecology of the planet, like, glaciers melt and they feed the rivers, and those feed the lakes, etc., etc. So much of the clouds that move around in different parts of the world bounce off of the mountains or the mountain ranges. So the clouds actually affect climate, they affect habitat, they affect the winds, they affect even the distance between, if certain mountains weren't there, entire villages, cities, even in some cases parts of continents wouldn't exist because they'd be underwater. The only thing keeping the land from the sea or from the ocean is the mountain range in between, right? Because there's a difference in levels. And imagine when the mountains start getting flattened, well, what do you expect is going to happen next? Well, the water's going to start rising, or it's going to fill in the gaps that are going to be created, isn't it? So you have this, for now Allah is just saying mountains are going to make way, they're going to be sailing away. They're going to be smoothly transitioning out, or they're going to be made to do so. وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ. And now Allah brings the matter back to the Arabs, because they're in the desert, right? So mountains are still in the distance, and they're not really close to any water. So they see the sky going crazy, and they see the mountains losing it out in the distance. But then this is going to be such a terrifying day that Allah now mentions a strange scene that is hard for you and me to relate to, because we don't have this experience. But I'll share with you some things about it from the original Arabic, and then I'll share with you how this applies to us. Allah says, وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ. When the pregnant camel, the she-camel obviously, when the pregnant camel that is pregnant for 10 months, and by the way, camels deliver between 10 and 12 months, so they could go any moment at that point. When that kind of a camel is going to be left to roam free, ta'attalat actually is the word for it that Allah uses, is used for women. When a woman is going through serious depression and decides to not take care of herself, and so they say عطلت المرأة تعطل عطلا وعطولا أو تعطلت إذا لم يكن عليها حلي ولم تلبس الزينة وخلا جيدها من القلائد. If she puts no makeup on, she doesn't take care of her eyes, her skin is getting all crusty or whatever. She's got bags under her eyes. She doesn't put any jewelry on. And people look at her and go, what happened to you? Where, do you have a, you look like someone I know. Like, they say about that woman, she's experiencing utul. Now, what that means is she's not taken care of. Like, she stopped caring about herself, right? The reason this is important to understand, I'll read some Arabic to you and then I'll translate. Al-ishar jam'u ushra. وهي الناقة الحامل إذا بلغت 10 أشهر لحملها فقاربت أن تضع حملها لأن النوق تحمل عاما كاملا. والعشار أنفس مكاسب العرب. This is the important part. A camel was already an important, expensive commodity back in the day. Right? If you're going to be living in the desert, then your horse ain't going to get you from one village to another. It's going to die on the way. And so will you. You want something that's going to have a big gas tank. It's going to last one end to the other. And you're going to go and do trade. You're going to buy a bunch of stuff and bring it back. Where are you going to load it on? You're going to need the camel. It's your truck back in the day. This is your business. This is your vessel. This is the ship of the sands. Right? So it's a really expensive thing. And it's a lot of money to keep a camel, to feed a camel. The thing's got a big appetite, Especially in a desert environment, water is in short supply, and it's going to drink a lot of water, right? So it's an expensive investment, but it pays off. Now what they do is if they're lucky enough to have a female camel and it's pregnant, you know what that means? They're about to double their investment. It's going to give birth, and now I have 2 instead of 1. Cars don't do that, trucks don't do that, So it's actually going to, double my investment, double my wealth. So when a camel was pregnant, they would go out of its way to feed it, not load anything on it, take care of it, keep it in the shade, because they want the baby to come out right. Not because they care, but because that's money in the belly. So they've got to really go out of their way to take care of this thing. So of all the animals that you saw in Arab society, the animal that got treated royally, like, don't mess with this one, and they'd rather sleep outside and let it sleep in the shade, is going to be the she-camel. What does Allah do? He says, وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ. When that she-camel that is so valuable to the Arabs, it's about to give birth, is going to be left like nobody cares for it. You know what that means? People who spend a lot of time caring for such a camel are preoccupied with something else. So much so that their most important expensive investment is left completely unattended. How could that be? This is actually an incredible continuation from something that it kind of answers the question that was created in the previous surah. لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. Every individual will have something that preoccupies them on that day that will make them unconcerned about everything else. And now you see a ishar walking around, a pregnant camel walking around, left abandoned, uncared for. Its fur is all scruffy. It's running around. It looks like it hasn't eaten. That when you look at it like that, that's a shocking scene for an Arab. If they saw a ishar left alone, they'd be like, "Who's crazy? Who left their Ferrari with the doors open like that? For days and days in a rough neighborhood. Like, you wouldn't do that. That's crazy. Who did this?" It's clearly someone who has bigger problems, right? So this is what إِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ. Now this is the thing. The word ishar was so valuable to them. When Arabs valued something, they used the word for it in creative ways too. Okay? So, and we do that, of course, in any society, even in the English language, right? So, I'll say, my laptop is the Ferrari of laptops or whatever, or he's the Michael Jordan of this or that. When we see the zenith of something, then we make that comparison to other things. That's a normal thing you do in language. So they would actually make a reference to ishar, not just to refer to pregnant camels, but they would use it also, for example, مُسْتَعَارَةٌ لِلْأَسْحِبَةِ الْمُحْمِلَةِ بِالْمَطَرِ شُبِهَتْ بِالنَّاقَةِ الْعُشْرَةِ. When the Arabs saw clouds that are dark, what do dark clouds mean? It's about to what? Rain. They would call that the same word they call a pregnant camel. Now that's an important connection to understand. The Arabs don't get a lot of rain. They're in the desert. So when it's going to rain, it's like an incredible rare treasure, so valued. And so they are as excited about this exotic treasure as they are about the pregnant she-camel. In other words, Allah used a word that wasn't just a specific term for a specific animal. It was actually a cultural phenomenon for things that are expensive and valuable. And that's why وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ has universal value. Today, al-isharu uttilat would be, they left their mansion unattended, the gate is open, the stove is running, the car's actually, the ignition's still on, and the key's inside, and the radio's on, and the door's open, but nobody's there. Wealth just left, People are going to be, they're at the bank opening their safety deposit box. The deposit box is open and nobody's there, and there's like gold coins falling out of it. And nobody cares. This is al-isharu uttilat. That's an impossible scene for us to imagine. They do this sometimes in apocalyptic kinds of movies, right? They'll show you like when the civilizations come to an end, or zombies have taken over or whatever, and they'll show like cash lying around, or gold, and nobody cares for it anymore because it has no value now, And this is actually kind of the scene that's being depicted for Judgment Day. There's not going to be any value to the things you place so much value on. The question is, human beings run after these things their whole life. Under normal circumstances, if you saw people that have amazing wealth or amazing investments, you dream one day that you're going to do that. Like my background is full-time employment of all kinds. I've done all kinds of fun jobs. Like I've sold shoes and delivered newspapers and you name it, I've done it. Okay. So when you do those kinds of jobs, what your dream is? I'm going to save up enough and then I'm going to get a donut shop. Or I'm going to get, I'm going to get a coffee. I'm going to start a business. Because what is to you a business? A business isn't just I'm going to work there all day. Your picture of a business is when I have that business, I could chill. Everybody else is going to be doing the work like I am right now. And I'm going to be making that money. That's the vision of ishar. So when you see someone with the ishar, when you see someone with an investment that's compounding and growing and growing and growing, you're like, man, one day. And then people take advantage of that from you too, right? Make $10 million in just the first year. I sold Tupperware for 1 week and I made $10,000. Really? Really? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. But people that are desperate will sign up and they're going to fall into all of that. But the point, I digress. I didn't want to talk to you about pyramid schemes, but what I do want to talk to you about is when you say إِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ, it's actually referring to a past time where if there was anything you'd run after, it would be the ishar. And if there's one thing you'd never leave behind, it would be the ishar. Even in states of emergency, when a plane is like, they're getting ready for the emergency exit or whatever, they say leave your belongings behind, right? If somebody's carrying jewelry or loads of cash, guess what? They ain't leaving it behind. They're going to take that with them. Come hell or high water. What's the point of living without this? I'm going to take it with me. People might leave other things behind, but that Chanel bag is coming with me. That's $5,000. I'm not letting that go, So now, from there, the mountains have moved, the most valuable assets have been left alone, so clearly people are running somewhere. They're going somewhere. And even if the mountains were moving, that's pretty crazy and the sky's going crazy, but where are you going to run? Well, you're going to be running away from something. What are you going to be running away from? وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ سُجِّرَتْ. It's a progression of images. And even when the oceans themselves fill up and merge, the land is going to get so depressed because the mountains are out of the way. Other places in the Quran will describe إِذَا الْأَرْضُ مُدَّتْ. The earth will get stretched. The earth will get stretched. Now let me tell you something. If there's a sheet, like a crumpled up sheet on a bed, and you've got crumbs on it because kids have been eating cookies or whatever, and there's crumbs in there somewhere, right? When you stretch the sheet, what happens? Everything that was embedded flies up. Allah says the earth will get stretched and everything lying therein is going to pop out. وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا وَتَخَلَّتْ. Everything inside of it is going to pop out, meaning the dead are going to come out. But even more, when the earth starts getting stretched. And by that stretch, the mountains are also starting to get what? They're starting to get flattened. And there's earth at the bottom of the seas too. It is also being pulled and stretched. And when it starts getting stretched, the earth is going to start tearing open. And when it tears open at the bottoms of the oceans, what's under that land underneath the oceans? There's the core of the earth. There's that lava. It's all going to come out in full. And now the oceans just turned into a giant pot that is burning. So the oceans, in this image, in this surah, they are being merged. So the oceans are now filling in with one another. This container over here, that ocean over there. Since the land has been flattened, they now are becoming one. And giant tsunami waves are coming. And people and animals are running away from The water that's headed towards them, they're being herded in a particular direction, right? In a later surah, Allah will describe وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ فُجِّرَتْ, and when the oceans are going to boil over. They're going to explode because they're overboiling. If you ever leave a kettle with the lid on and you're boiling water, and you left the fire on and you didn't leave any room for the gas to come out, what's going to happen? It's going to explode. That's the kind of scorching explosion that's going to happen with the oceans. So there's two parts of it. One, they're merging. All the different bodies of water are becoming one. And the other is later on, they're going to boil over. But for now, this is the case of what's happening around you. Now we're thinking, where are people going to be? What's going to be happening with people? And so Allah Azza wa Jal says, and by the way, just something about سجرت سجرت النهر ملأته المسجور في كلام العرب المملوء, filled up. So the oceans are going to get filled up and merged together. أفضى بعضها إلى بعض فصارت بحرا واحدا. They fuse into one another, becoming one. And now we learn about what's going to happen with people. Allah says, وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ, and when people, you can even say the souls, even though it's not the best translation, when souls are going to get paired up. That's what it literally says. When even the souls shall get paired up. Now what in the world does that mean? Let's try to understand that. The first meaning of it is that when we die, there were two parts to us. There was a physical body and there was a soul that Allah breathed into us through the angel when we were pregnant with, inside the bellies of our mothers, right? And then that soul departs when you die. It goes up and it gets judged and then it comes back in. And now at that point, your physical body as it was and your soul have been severed. The relationship between them has been severed. When the people will be paired up again, it's like your body and your soul will be remerged. They will be fused once again. You'll be brought back to life, not just as a soul, body and soul, completely. This is what إِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ. The Quran does not have a concept that we're going to come back some fuzzy spiritual, go through walls, Casper type creature. We're going to be physical creatures. We're going to actually be in full form once again. And that's why when the sleepers of the cave, because this was actually happening, there was a debate happening among Christianity at the time of the sleepers of the cave mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. The debate was, when God resurrects, will He resurrect the body and the soul or just the soul? And there was a debate among them. And when the sleepers of the cave resurrected, that's how Allah proved أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا, that the promise of Allah, body and soul, is in fact true. Their waking up was actually a proof to the Christians who were going far away from the original teachings of the revelation given to them, that in fact body and soul will be resurrected. Here, an-nufusu zuwijat could be a reference to that. But the word zuwijat means a few other things. The word zuwijat can also mean when each individual is paired up. Because we have in Surah Qaf, every one of us has a devil that sticks with us all our life, studies us, understands us, knows exactly what to say and what to prompt us to get us to do the temptations that we fall into. Each one of us have different weaknesses at different occasions. He knows those really well and comes to you just at the right time. He's called your qareen, the guy that never leaves you alone. When people are going to be paired up with the guy that's going to testify against them, their devil. And that testimony, your own personal devil that was always there trying to mess with you. By the way, it's not like the Tom and Jerry version. Because in Tom and Jerry, when Jerry's about to do something bad, there's an angel Jerry and there's a devil Jerry. With the pitchfork. That's not the Islamic concept. In Islam, both of these are angels. And none of them is red. And they're not like heavenly versions of yourself. They're not that. But what they are is, on the one hand, there's an angel writing your good deeds and the other writing your bad deeds. But other than that, there's actually a qareen. Other than that, there's someone who's allowed to close access to you, your personal devil, you can say, who tries to be your friend, who pretends to be your friend. Which is why Allah keeps saying, don't be confused. No doubt the devil is your enemy. Inna shaytan lakum adu. Shaitan is your enemy, shaitan is your enemy. He keeps saying he's your enemy because you don't realize that because he acts like what? Your friend. You feel like these are my feelings. Nah, they're not your feelings. You'll be like, those were your feelings? You're like, yup, trying to get you into hell. And it worked. That's what's going to happen. And that conversation is actually in the 50th surah of the Quran, for those of you that are curious, in Surah Qaf. Okay? That's where that conversation happens, between the qareen and how he testifies against yourself on Judgment Day. So perhaps the pairing here is referring to you being paired with the shocking devil that was always there, with you. And now you both come and testify, you know. The other meaning of zuwijat could be from the word azwaj. Like Allah says in Surah Al-Haqqa, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا, or Surah Al-Waqi'ah rather. You are paired into 3 groups. Zawj in Arabic could mean spouse, but actually can also mean a group that among whom you belong. A group with whom you belong, like you fit in with them. Like what we call nowadays your clique. You know, your clique. They're people of your likeness. They are people that have the same interests as you. You get along with them, they get along with you. You like hanging out with them. They become your zawj in a sense. Okay? And this is actually the term used not only for Judgment Day. Allah says on Judgment Day there will be 3 groups of zawj. One group will be the ones that are far ahead than everybody else, as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. One group is going to be the people on the right hand, and one group is going to be the people of the left hand. Right? May Allah not make us from them. But even in this world, the Messenger ﷺ was told, you shouldn't look to certain groups, you know, مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Azwaj was used there too. Don't look towards those certain groups that have a lot going on in this life. You know, because certain groups, like, you know, there's a group of wealthy friends, they live in an expensive suburban neighborhood, they all have expensive cars, they're all fighting about who's going to throw their Eid dinner because they each want to show off their new house. You know, there's those kinds of things happen, don't they? And, you know, inviting people to your home is not anymore about inviting people to your home. It's actually, you know, who's worthy of HGTV status, kind of, you know, where did you get this couch from? Where did you get that curtain from? And if that's what it becomes, these are a kind of azwaj. And those are the kinds of people that everybody else wants to emulate. You know, and you go there and you feel like you're homeless because these, you know, I'm like, so where do you live? I have an apartment. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor. It was going to come with a garage, but I decided to be more responsible. And as they're walking you through their 5-car garage, and you know, oh, that's cute. 1 bedroom. My son's dormitory is 3-bedroom, and he lives alone. You know. So there's people like that. The point is, the people that you are with in this life are the people you're going to be raised with. Those are the people you're going to be surrounded by. And so people are going to be paired up by their lifestyles. Who were you with? وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. May Allah make us in the group of believers. Hey guys, you just watched a short clip from this surah. What I want you to do now is go through the entire surah with me. It's called the Deeper Look series, and you can catch it on BayyinahTV.com under the Deeper Look section. So get started.